And welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Rewatch Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 097 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from December 4th, 1993, taped November 28th, 1993, from Freedom Hall in Johnson City, Tennessee. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the jaw rule to my Billy McFarland. It's Trae. Trae, how the hell are you today?
I don't know who any of those people are.
You don't know who Ja Rule is?
Is he the one that sued Diamond Dallas Page over the diamond cutter symbol?
I thought it was the other way around, but yes.
Uh, okay. Well, then I do
Yeah.
know who Ja
Uh,
Rule is.
well, Billy McFarland, and don't ask me why, but like all of a sudden this past week, I became obsessed with the Fyre Festival, the 2017 music festival that was just a total disaster.
Not
They stranded the
not to be
inspiration for
confused,
Fyre Fest. Yes.
not to be confused with the Fire Festival, the annual 0-1 round robin tournament.
Or AEW Fighter Fest, correct. Which
Correct.
I want to point out that I'm so behind the times that when they did that first show in 2019, I did not get the joke. Um,
I thought
but
I
anyway,
thought that was a
the,
I thought that was a
part of
pretty
the re
decent name for a pay-per-view anyway.
it actually was, so I didn't even really think otherwise that, this is an inside joke that I wasn't getting. But
Yeah.
the reason why I probably was thinking about it and why it kept popping up in my news feed all of a sudden is because after Billy McFarland, who is the weird, creepy, smiley guy who pretended to run it and, ended up in jail for 2 or 3 years because of it, he's allegedly doing it again. Um,
I wonder
and
if anybody's gonna fall for it this time.
allegedly, and again, you have to take this with a grain of salt because, he is not very forthcoming with details. Apparently, they've sold at least 100 tickets to the show.
A
Uh,
hundred. Wow.
I mean, with the disaster was the first time, I couldn't imagine more than one person doing it, and that's more just so somebody could go and witness the disaster.
It
Um,
70 something million people just voted for dipshit betrayed or fuck the third time. People are very, very stupid.
I guess so, but so it's a music festival, and are you sitting down over there, Trey?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm going to tell you every artist, band, whatever you want to call it, that is currently signed and promoted for this
Oh,
big music festival
this will
that's
be
two
fun.
months away. Yes.
Let's see if I've heard of
Okay.
any of them.
The following acts have been signed and promoted for Fyre Fest 2 in 2 months. It's 2 months from basically today. Nobody,
Nobody?
nobody. And I'm
My
not saying
favorite
that like
band.
I'm not saying there's some weird singer out there whose name is Nobody. I'm saying nobody. No acts, no singers, no performers, nobody has been signed and promoted to be at this music festival that you can buy tickets and go to. I don't even know where the hell it is. I think it's in the Bahamas. No. And the tickets start, by the way, at $1,400. And that's for the most basic level of package. And you can buy tickets as expensive as $1.1 million.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason, by the way, the reason why I mentioned Ja Rule was because the first Fyre Fest, Ja Rule was one of the organizers, which may be one of the reasons why it crashed and burned so epically.
Not a very fucking good organizer, is he?
No, he's not. And so part of me just thinks that Billy McFarland really enjoyed his time in jail and is looking forward to going back a second time.
Well,
Um,
I hope he gets there.
yes. So Smoky Mountain, number 97. We are officially less than 2 years away from the end of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Aw.
November 26th, 1995 is episode number 200, and we're on December 4th, 1993.
My
You
dad's
know,
birthday.
happy birthday to your dad. Well, happy birthday to your dad in 9 months. So we're not obviously at the halfway point because episode number 100 is on Christmas Day, coming up in 3 weeks. And I kind of wonder if Corny would have somehow been able to see into the future and known that the show is only going to do 200 episodes and then the company would go out of business, if he would have done something special for episode 100. It's like, it's the halfway point.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be the halfway point, presumably.
Yeah. So we talked about this before the show. We talked about this for a few shows now that your wife was out of town for a while and you had decided to try to watch as much professional wrestling as humanly possible while your wife was out of town. And I have been waiting, as the listeners are listening to this, for 1 week and 1 day to ask you about something. And
Okay.
so, Trae, what are your thoughts on Edge sticking a nail-covered board into Moxley's back that had to be yanked out on national television?
I don't think that that's an experience that I would have enjoyed partaking in. But God bless Jon Moxley.
Honestly, it has to literally be the most graphic thing I've ever seen on professional wrestling. And before this,
It was, yeah.
mhm,
It just the way it pulled the skin. Oh my God. Oh, it's crazy how gnarly that was. Like you wouldn't,
yeah,
I don't know. It fucking nails. Nails are a lot.
be like closest thing before this that I could remember just being grossed out watching on, national television was remember when Impact did a barbed wire match that I think it was when they were on Pop TV that Pop TV refused to air, so they had to air it on Twitch with the second LAX versus the Christs and Sammy Callahan.
I don't remember this.
Well, it ended with I think Homicide sticking I think Sammy Callahan in the head with a whole bunch of skewers.
I
And
hate the skewers.
yes.
I
And
don't
it
like
was
the
like obviously
skewers.
not worked skewers. I don't know how you'd work a skewer, but that is not what happened there.
The thing, I don't like that shit really, but like if you if Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley, if they're making the choice that they want to do that to create their art, like who the fuck am I to say that it's wrong?
Well, I mean, you could say that it's wrong by not supporting it. And obviously, it's too late to not watch last week's show. But I mean, you can argue that people may be so turned off by it. And we'll see how yesterday's show did. But people may not watch, this week, for instance, or really moving forward. And I get someone out there is going to go, well, Collision after the NCAA basketball tournament did reasonably well, did like 580, 590,000 viewers. And it's like, sure, like, but let's wait and see how things go moving forward. Let's wait and see how Dynasty does. Because, I mean, you have Jon Moxley, who took a nail covered bat into his back, versus Swerve Strickland, who a few months ago took a syringe into his lip. So obviously, neither are adverse to extreme wrestling conditions.
Yeah, oh God, on the New Japan Cup finals, like El Desperado, like he hadn't been around all tour. Finally, he shows up, and it's like his back is so fucking disgusting because he was on like the famous deathmatch referee Barb Sasaki had like a 25th anniversary show with a bunch of death matches on it, and I guess El
Hmm.
Desperado took a bump into fucking glass or some shit. It's like, oh, it's just so horrible. Like, but here's the thing. I don't like it, but then like I don't know what I like is it really going to turn that many people off, or is it turning people off just like a straw argument for people who are gonna pearl clutch about anything AEW does?
Honestly, I think, and to be perfectly honest, I think the only people who will be turned off by it are the people who already stopped watching.
Yeah, because it's like
And
that is that really that much worse than fucking Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho with the pizza cutter?
it wasn't Eddie Kingston. That was
Yes, it was. No,
no,
it wasn't. It was Nick
it was what's his
Gage.
name?
Oh, Nick
Yes, I
Gage. You're right. Oh shit.
yes.
Yeah. Jericho and Kingston was the barbed wire. Yeah.
And that's when they did the Domino's commercial uh
Yes.
while Nick Gage was slicing up Jericho with a pizza cutter.
Phenomenal.
And if I'm not mistaken, Domino's never sponsored them again. I'm not saying Domino's was paying top dollar, but I mean that's a national advertising name pulling their advertising. And, you know, and I said this before, I'm really, 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 really happy that Dynamite got renewed or AEW got renewed. I'm really happy they got the money they're getting. I ask what happens in 3 years. I get we're 2.5 years away from 3 years from that contract, but I'm more curious about their next contract because
Here's the
the the numbers aren't going anywhere, and I could see why it was worth a renewal just to see what happens. But at the moment, AEW is ice cold. TNT, even losing the NBA, TNT and TBS have a lot of quote unquote real sports commitments, and real sports bring in, good ad revenue. Uh, whatchamacallit, reruns of The Big Bang Theory. I haven't looked at their ratings, but I know at least not that long ago they were not doing, any worse than Dynamite was. It's like, it'll be interesting to see moving forward. And like I said, I'm really happy for them. I have people and I have friends who work in front of and behind the camera at AEW, and I do not want anybody to lose their job. But, you know, I do think that they need to make sure to, know what lines to not cross. And, I think when sponsors pull out, that's when a line has been crossed too far. And, thankfully they have not done the pizza cutter spot again. But I would say the nails to the back was worse because, I mean, I don't know whether or not the pizza cutter thing was worked, but you can't work sticking nails into Moxley's back.
I don't care. I hate numbers. Whatever happens in 2.5 years is going to involve stuff that neither of us is smart enough to understand. And I fucking hate people calling things ice cold.
Okay. You remember that pro wrestling what was it you wanted to do, the pro wrestling dictionary or something, or the pro wrestling rule book?
Pro Wrestling Style Guide. Well, okay,
Yes,
there's two different projects there. The Style Guide and the uniform rules.
I think somehow we have to squeeze a way to list all the phraseology that you're not a fan of in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
That's probably a good idea.
Um, so hey, want to talk about some Smoky Mountain Wrestling at this point?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually gonna make a little note to myself for the Pro Wrestling Style Guide, so I'll remember that. But yeah, let's get started.
All right, so we are at Freedom Hall in Johnson City, Tennessee, on the fourth leg of the second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour for a very special episode. Now, Trae, I know that the official 2 hour version of this is available. Did you watch the 2 hour version of this?
I did not, and I normally would have. I'm just a little behind on all that 1993 stuff. I'm behind on because of real life. So no, I have not watched the full version.
I mean, if it helps, I'm pretty sure the only thing we didn't even see clips of was Primetime Brian Lee versus Dirty White Boy. And I'm not even sure why, but we did at least, I guess we didn't see the Moondogs versus The Rock and Roll Express either. But we at least know that somehow, some way, Primetime Brian Lee is still your Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion of the territory.
Look,
But
if you're telling me
hmm,
that I can see Tim Horner versus Prince KHARIS in full, I gotta go see that.
I, I almost like went to hunt it down just to see what we missed from that match. Um,
It's
we'll 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 get to that. But let's go to the intro of the show with Dutch Mantel and Les Thatcher. We're going to intro this week's show.
Welcome, fans, to a special edition of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I'm Les Thatcher. Along with me, be calling action today will be Dutch Mantel. We've got a great array of great matches. It's a second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour. That's right. We're in Johnson City's Freedom Hall. Right. And, of course, today's lineup, many great matches. News about two of the great matches already signed for the Christmas Chaos Tour. Tape footage from last week, including Tracy Smothers, Brian Lee, and the Dirty White Boy, among others. And a special announcement. Boston Gardens, the Survivor Series. It was the Heavenly Bodies in a controversial win defeating the Rock and Roll Express for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team.
Let's say one thing about it. As soon as we can get those tightwads up there in Stamford, Connecticut to release some footage, we're going to see the most glorious time ever in Smoky Mountain history when we see the Heavenly Bodies regain and retake those Smoky Mountain belts from the Rock and Roll Express. It was a great day for me and Jim
I'll tell you what, Dirty Dutch, I want to let everybody know something. The entire world has been talking about the debut of my Egyptian prince, Prince KHARIS, the man who's going to change the face of professional wrestling as we know it. He's here at the second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour. Tim Horner, you're going to be finished. You're going to be nothing more than a used Kleenex in the peep show booth of life. Your career is ended, and everybody in the world is going to see that everything I've said is true. Prince KHARIS is changing the face of wrestling as we know it.
Well, we're going to the closing moments of the Turkey title match with Chris Candido and Bobby Blaze.
All right. So a little bit to unpack there. We're going to get a lot of highlights from the second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour. And we also find out what we talked about last week. The Heavenly Bodies defeated the Rock and Roll Express at Survivor Series for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles. And they're wondering if they can get the tightwads from Stamford to release the footage. Now I have to ask you because, spoiler alert, Dutch is not long for this show. And double spoiler alert, he's in the WWF in like a year. Do you think they made a trade? The footage for Dutch?
um, but maybe that with some extra steps.
Mm-hmm. Possibly, possibly, possibly. All right. So we go to our first. Oh, yeah. Daryl Van Horn came in and said Tim Horner's career is finished. And the funny thing is, like we mentioned last week, this is the end of young Timothy Horner here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
The way that Les kept glancing from Van Horn to his notes back to Van Horn with that "who is this motherfucker" look on his face was like fantastic.
I'll be honest, I did not notice that.
It was the best part of all of this.
So we go to our opening match. It is the WWA World Heavyweight Champion and the Smoky Mountain United States Junior Heavyweight Champion, Chris Candido versus Bobby Blaze for the Turkey Championship. Now, I got a question. How is the Smoky Mountain Wrestling region able to recognize the Junior Heavyweight Champion of the entire United States? Because it's not
Recognizing it doesn't mean that it's like restricted to the Smoky Mountain area. I mean, in theory, they like that around this time they're implying to be members of the NWA. They're recognizing the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That doesn't make the NWA World Title a regional title.
they're not yet members of the NWA though,
That's
because at
not the
this
point.
well, but they're not really recognizing the NWA title yet either. I
That's
understand your
irrelevant.
point.
That's irrelevant to the point.
I'm literally just going off what you said. Anyway, okay. am I going crazy, or has Bobby Blaze never worn long tights in his life?
Oh my
At
god!
least on this show.
I th- it tells you
Oh,
a lot about this match that the main thing that we both noticed was Bobby Blaze in Long Boys.
I'm like, he looks like the missing white member of Harlem Heat.
He did. He did. I didn't even think of that. That's perfect. Yeah.
And it's funny because
The Bobby
because like
Blaze and the Heat.
you're watching WCW now, or at least you're trying to. You said you're a little behind, but Harlem Heat has debuted. Their gear
Yeah.
does not look like this. This is how it will eventually look with the flames on it. If I recall correctly, Harlem Heat right now just has like generic red and black gear. And they got the bandanas that Booker once said that they were actually shirt sleeves he cut off a shirt.
Oh. Yeah, I was thinking that they had a flame on them, but maybe my brain just inserted that automatically.
Maybe my brain remembers
Yeah.
differently.
Well, they've been
And
around for a few months now, so maybe they've added the flame. I don't know.
and they were Kane and Cole.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yes. How long is it until they become Booker T and Stevie Ray? I'm not even
You know,
sure.
I looked, and I think it's close to a year.
Wow. That
Yeah,
that is surprising.
yeah.
Honestly, it's like I remember Harlem Heat being there in '93, and then I don't remember them being in WCW again until they become tag team champions at the end of '94. Like I'm sure they were, and I'm sure if I go on a cage match, there's 200 matches with both of them in it during '94. But it's like I had no memory of them in WCW in 1994 until the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they were there the whole time.
Oh, I'm sure of it. But as you recall, I said this a few weeks ago, or a few months ago at this point. Until Nitro came along, the only WCW show we got was worldwide because we did not have TBS.
Oh.
Um, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing considering what we missed at the time, but you know.
Yeah,
Anyway, Blaze almost had the match won with the Northern Lights suplex, but Candido got his foot on the ropes. Blaze at one point tried to do the Trish Stratus corner hurricanrana, but it didn't work. And then was what happened next. I'm thinking what they may have been trying to do, which God only knows how they could have ever pulled this off, no matter how strong Candido is. They may have been trying to have him go for the Trish Stratus Hurricanrana, but Candido block it and turn that into the blonde bombshell.
yeah, that would have made sense, I guess.
I mean, I can't picture how that would have happened, but it's possible, I guess. But anyway, so Candido does hit the blonde bombshell for I think the first time ever, at least the first time in Smoky Mountain that we've seen, which is a top rope power bomb. And it's not exactly a move you can use on everybody. Like I think the only other person I've ever seen take it, at least take it well, was Lance Storm. And spoiler alert, Lance
Yeah,
Storm is a very good wrestler.
I'm gonna write this down.
Uh, yes. So Candido doesn't make a cover, and we are magically whisked away to later in the match, where Candido avoids becoming a triple champion using a roll up with an armful of tights. Actually, not an armful of tights, an armful of ropes. Um, but so I will say before we get into the post match, or I guess what happened immediately after, I will say the fact that Candido didn't try a cover after the blonde bombshell really tells you, in my opinion, because this is, if not the opener, it's one of the openers on the show, really tells you that that was too big of a move to be putting in this match at this point. Because, like, that was too big of a move to kick out of. And to be honest, I don't think he should have done that if that wasn't the finish.
You're right. This was probably the night that Cornette went, God damn it, Chris. Okay.
God damn, pal. You want to do a fucking power on the top rope? Go right ahead. God damn it. So after the match, Sandy Scott, who is apparently allowed to make rulings all of a sudden, um,
Hey,
the same
uh,
Sandy Scott, by the way, who allows cheating in countless Smoky Mountain matches, including seemingly at least one every week, did not allow the cheating here and ordered the match to continue. However, because Candido had won, they had rolled in the tarp into the ring, and he'd been given the tar-like substance, and he started pouring it on Blaze before throwing about 800,000 feathers onto Bobby Blaze. Like, Jesus Christ, that was a lot of fucking feathers there.
It was.
And then Sandy Scott then fined Candido $1,000, and the match just ended. And I were to guess, it ended in a no contest.
Well, everything that I could find has Bobby Blaze winning. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they just moved on and didn't show the actual finish. But yeah, Les said that Sandy Scott was the commissioner.
I think he was speaking out of turn when he said that.
Okay.
Now, that's just my thought. Maybe like he is the de facto commissioner at this point. But yeah, I mean, he is one member of the 2-member board of directors at the moment, which I want to see those meetings when Sandy Scott and Mark Curtis disagree on what to do. What's the tiebreaker?
Drunk Mark Lawrence. They call him on the phone from Dallas.
Poor drunk Mark Lawrence. So other than that, like, I think it was a fine match. It's there to get heat on Candido. I honestly kind of wanted to see the whole thing, but especially when they said the match went over 20 minutes, I'm like, it might be a little long for was essentially the opening card guys on the show.
Yeah.
But
Probably
ultimately,
good, though.
I don't know whether to chalk this up as another Smoky Mountain stipulation that was not met. Like, they met it to a degree, but it still wasn't quite what was promoted.
Yeah, I wonder what they did the other nights.
I honestly didn't look it up. Um I don't know. We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about this, for the next 2 years. Cornette has real trouble with these stipulations because he sets these stipulations, and a lot of times they are not followed. And this company, as big as it gets, it's never going to be hot enough to where they can just screw the fans over on stips and, the fans be happy about it still.
Yeah,
and that's one thing.
That's
And that's one thing you really say about ECW. Like, for all their faults, they made a point that any stip they had was adhered to.
Yeah.
Hell, to the point, like, wasn't it the fucking Bad Breed who lost a loser must break up match? And then, like, 10 years later, when they did the Hardcore Homecoming show, they still wouldn't tag up because of that stipulation on a match that most people have long since forgotten.
That may have been the most integrity that Ian Rotten has ever shown.
And something tells me it wasn't his call. So from here, they air the finish and post-match of last week's 6-man tag, where after 5 men and 1 witch interfere, Dirty White Boy is the last man standing, despite not being in the match at all.
Yeah, well, you don't have to be in the match to stand up.
No, you don't. Well, from here, we're going to go backstage to Brian Matthews, who is going to interview Tracy Smothers, and that's going to lead into an interview with the Dirty White Boy. Let's go to that right now.
Brian Matthews for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We've just caught up with the wild-eyed Southern boy, Tracy Smothers, here in the locker room at a Smoky Mountain Wrestling event. Tracy, I know the question on my mind, and a lot of the fans' minds are, when are you going to make peace, Tracy, with the Dirty White Boy?
Well, that's a good question. I've been asking myself kind of that here lately, too. Before I answer that question, I'd like to say one thing. 2 of the toughest feuds I've ever had in my life have been with Primetime Brian Lee and the Dirty White Boy. I mean, man, things ain't looked good lately for the home team. You know, I've come up a little short in my quest to get the Smoky Mountain heavyweight title back, and a little bit down, you know. And, you know, I know right now that the Dirty White Boy's got a lot of friends. He's got a lot of fans on his side. And, man, he's done so many things to me over the past few months. And it's awful hard. There's a lot of water under the bridge, and it's hard to accept him as an ally, as a friend, as anything. But I can say one thing. White Boy, I don't want your help. I don't need your help. I don't trust you because I have no reason to trust you. It's as simple as that.
Because of the confrontation you've just witnessed, a special match has been signed for Christmas Chaos. It will be a triple threat match for the Smoky Mountain heavyweight title. Involved will be primetime Brian Lee, Tracy Smothers, and a gentleman with me now, the Dirty White Boy. White Boy, the way this match goes, all three men in the ring at the same time, as you get beat, you get eliminated. Now, it's a tough confrontation. It's going to be a tough match. And I know over the last few months you've suffered the normal physical abuse that every wrestler does, but then there's been a lot of psychological pressure on you as well.
Well, you know, I do wish that Ron Wright was at ringside with me for this, but he's still recovering. And Ron, I hope you get better. I'll give you a call after a while. But you know, Les, it's the first time in my life I've ever been in any type of match like this, and I know that I'm going in with not a friend in the world. There's not going to be one friend in that ring. Tracy Smothers comes up and says, I don't like the Dirty White Boy for what all he's done. Well, I expect that out of you, Tracy, and I'm not begging anybody to be my friend. But the main person that I want to get my hands on in that ring is primetime Brian Lee. I can't stand your stinking guts, punk. So what's going to happen is, if I beat primetime Brian Lee, it's not over with yet. It's not over with. I've got to go, and then I've got to pin Tracy Smothers to become the Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion.
So they're coming at you from both angles?
Both ends, both angles, forward, sideways, backwards, any way you want. All I've got to say, tough guys, Tracy and primetime, you bring it on down, because what's going to happen is, I plan on beating both of you and walking out the Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. And Miss Tammy Fetch, if you think for 1 minute that you're going to interfere in a match, just take a look across the ring, because a dirty white girl will be ringside.
Three tough competitors, the prize, the Smoky Mountain heavyweight title.
We're joining. All right, so before we talk about the promos, Trae has some bragging to do.
I told you so. I told you that the term triple threat match originated in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. I love the storyline. They're going to end up being best friends, and it's going to be awesome.
They're going to be BFFs, but that's actually not going to be until like 95, I think.
Oh,
So
well, long-term storytelling.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I have no idea when they taped this Tracy Smothers promo. It was probably at the last TV taping, because as we've mentioned, Tracy is not at the second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour. He is in All Japan right now, competing in the Real World Tag League, or whatever it's actually called.
Okay. So the name in Japanese translates to World's Strongest Tag League, but the advertising that Baba was using in like the 70s and 80s, for whatever reason, a mistranslation, it said Real World Tag League. So pretty much, I think everybody agrees that you can call it either one, and it's correct.
All right, great. So I accidentally called it the right thing. So he said he has no reason to trust the Dirty White Boy, and that goes to Les, who announces the triple threat match at Christmas Chaos. Primetime Brian Lee, Dirty White Boy, and Tracy Smothers. And, even though we had a 3-team match, 6 or 7 months ago, that was elimination rules, they still spent the time here to explain what this is, what the rules are, and so there was no confusion. Both challengers or two people will have to lose in order for the match to end at Christmas Chaos.
I much
Now,
prefer that. I think that it should
mhm.
always be that way, pretty much. I don't like the one fall thing. But like I can see certain circumstances. Like, okay, if I was booking a company and I wanted to do like an undercard, like a multi-man match with, 4, 5 guys or whatever, and it's just the first one to catch a pin, call that a scramble match. But I think like championship matches, like I think should be like elimination rules always.
You read my mind. I was going to say that. I'm like, any multi-man, multi-team championship match should be an elimination match
Yeah, or
because, mhm.
conversely, a variation of that I thought of that would work, and I don't know if anybody's ever actually done this, but like have a rule set that if the champion pins somebody, they win, they retain the title. If somebody pins the champion, they win the title. If somebody pins somebody who's not the champion, that person who got pinned is just eliminated from the match.
Slightly different than what I was going to go with. I was going to say the challengers can only win by pinning the champion, which is what they did at a breakdown with Austin, Undertaker, and Kane.
Yeah.
And the hilarious part about that, and it's like I get what they were trying to go for, but JR was screaming about how unfair this was, that you're sicking these two monsters on Austin, and the only people they can beat is Austin. And it's like it really is fair because Austin can't get screwed out of the title by Undertaker pinning Kane or Kane pinning the Undertaker.
Didn't
Austin
Lawler
can only
point that
lose the
out?
title. I think he did. It's been a while since I've seen that show,
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, Dirty White Boy. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I just heard what I wanted to hear. But didn't he say that no one will be with him at Christmas Chaos, and then seconds later say the Dirty White Girl will be with him?
Well, when you say no one is with you, it's just understood that your woman is always with you.
So Dirty White Girl isn't a someone.
Well, she's just understood.
This is like having a count out in a Falls Count Anywhere match. You know,
No, it's
it,
not. It's just no, it's not.
well, Dirty White Girl is someone, even if it is understood. Um, Anyway, so yeah, I'm feeling especially nitpicky tonight, and Trey's feeling especially not in the mood to be nitpicky tonight. So this has the
Look,
potential to go off the rails in a different way than usual.
look, it is cheating to get on a Southerner for grammar.
Okay, all right. At least we can, make fun of,
Prince
I don't know,
Karras?
my brother. My brother's an idiot. I am going to choke him a little in Las Vegas. He has definitely earned being choked a little bit. He will definitely be the Jack
Ugh.
Perry to my CM Punk.
You should book him against Prince Karras. It'd be entertaining.
I wonder what Prince Karras is doing. Prince
I
Karras, if
don't
you're
know.
listening to this, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, but Prince Karras, if you're listening to this, please, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
Uh, so before we get to the debut of the Egyptian Prince, let's go to Mr. Darrell Van Horn, who's going to introduce him to the world.
I gave you the opportunity on television to back out of this match before your career was ended. I told you you would not come out of this in one piece, but no, you had to be a hot dog, you had to be a hero and show up here at Thanksgiving Thunder. Well, Tim Horner, to put it in words that these inbred Tennessee cornholing fans of yours might understand, you are dumber than a bucket of coal. I told you hillbillies that I attended the University of Cairo. I told you that while there I studied archaeology. across the Isle of Souls. It was there that we entered the tomb. The Tannis leaves were burned. The incantations were read. We consumed the sacred scarab beetle. We opened the crypt and removed the papyrus, from which I read, Hoya Naseila Mokayata Yastonia Naronasa, Hino Sayakaro Mayanasa Noyanasa, Himoka Wizekizata, Wizekizata, Ishana Namostagi Anno Palamainotiata. It was then that I awoke after a slumber of 3,500 years. The immortal Prince KHARIS!
All right. So if nothing else, that is one hell of an introduction there by Mr. Daryl Van Horn.
And that was the height of this gimmick.
Yes. It all goes downhill from here.
This might actually be the worst thing I've ever seen. Like I went searching and I was appalled that I couldn't find a WrestleCrap entry on this.
I mean, I know WrestleCrap, at least for the longest time, the rules were to not induct anything from independent promotions, because it really isn't fair. But yeah, this is maybe this could have been a Weird World of Wrestling, thing when they were doing that. But yeah, Prince KHARIS in his pro wrestling debut, by the way. However, despite the fact that he has never wrestled and Horner's been wrestling for what, 13, 14 years at this point, KHARIS is the elder in this match. As he is 3,500 years old, while Tim Horner is only 34.
Well, he could he also likely has some experience in combat sports as well, just maybe under different rule sets.
There you go. Personally, I would have loved to see Prince KHARIS versus Gypsy Joe, the two oldest wrestlers ever.
That would have been excellent. They could have beaten the dust off of each other.
Exactly. Now, before we dive into this, first of all, because I'm probably never going to get to say this again, thunder rolls and the lightning strikes. All right. So before we dive into it, did you notice? I don't know. I've been spelling his name differently. But did you notice how the graphic spelled Daryl Van Horn?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
This is hi, I'm Larry. This is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl.
Well, so I will say this for how stupid this is, and how stupid it's going to be for as long as it lasts. The smartest idea in all this was, and I'm sure this is under Cornette's directive, Les Thatcher shit on this from the beginning. Les did not even, he did not play along. He is calling absolute bullshit on this. And when you're doing something this stupid and this whatever in what is otherwise a serious territory, you cannot have your play-by-play guy treat this seriously.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened here.
Les is not buying this bullshit. He is not validating this. Wants nothing to do with it. It was like that made it even better to me that Les just not like shitting all over it. And by the way, everybody in Jim Cornette's defense, this was Rick Rubin, who was the money guy, wanted a fucking mummy.
Who knows why? But yes, when the guy who's paying the bills wants a fucking mummy, you book the mummy, and it has to be a rib. That not only did he book the fucking mummy after, I'm assuming Rick Rubin did just call him and say, I want a mummy, and Corny went, okay, sure, let's get a mummy. But I'm sure like it's a rib that after Cornette acquiesced to having a mummy, he has him wrestling Horner. And it's not just because Horner is like one of the better wrestlers in the ring, but it's because Rick Rubin especially hated Tim Horner. Uh,
Horner couldn't make anything out of this. Bless his heart.
that's the craziest thing too. Tim Horner, like we said, like we've always said, as awful as he is on the microphone, Tim Horner is a very good professional wrestler inside the ring. Tim Horner could not get this match out of negative stars.
Arya, the mummy used a loaded cast.
Yes. He twisted up his arm bandages and waylaid Horner in the back with a forearm. And that was, by the way, I should point out, he's 3,500 years old. I'm impressed by how clean and white his bandages are after that long.
What the is Egyptian dust white? Because every time Horner would hit him, the dust would just come off in clouds.
Yes.
Stupid. You gotta see this. It's so fucking bad that it's the best thing ever.
The best part is like they cut in the middle of the match to a later part of the match, and this is why I don't know how much of it we missed, because we see Horner standing there and trying to do moves to Prince KHARIS, and KHARIS just standing there. And then we cut to later in the match where Horner is trying to do moves to Prince KHARIS while Prince KHARIS just stands there. And think about this. If the shit that we saw was good enough to make air, imagine what shit they didn't air.
Oh, I gotta go watch the tape. I gotta watch the full match. I gotta know.
So Horner eventually bumps him, and he does the Undertaker sit-up. KHARIS had... Okay, so Horner eye pokes Prince KHARIS. And then Nick Patrick showed up to do a fast count of Sting at Starrcade 97. And then when that finished, I went and ran a 10K event. And then when I got back from my 10K, Prince KHARIS sold the eye poke. I was like, okay, he's going to no-sell the eye poke. It was so long. I'm like, oh, he's no-selling it. And all of a sudden, oh, my eye. Maybe the bandages somehow protect his eyes better than not bandages would.
I guess.
So the finish of this match, Horner runs off the ropes and Darryl Van Horn trips him. Mark Curtis somehow doesn't see it despite looking right at it. KHARIS, as we mentioned, adjusted his arm bandages and KO'd Horner with a forearm. Mark Curtis is dropping Horner's arm, but before he drops it for the third time, Horner gets his foot on the ropes. Why didn't you keep your arm in the air if you had enough energy to put your foot on the ropes?
Well,
Anyway, I think Horner's just like, I need to get out of this fucking match.
Yeah.
But Horner got his foot on the ropes while his arm was being dropped. Curtis didn't see it, and Van Horn knocked it off before Curtis could turn around and see it. After the match, Prince KHARIS locks on the Shinanamaki, known to you normal people as the Cobra Clutch. And eventually, the inept Smoky Mountain security hit the ring and yelled at Darryl Van Horn, who was doing absolutely nothing like he's supposed to be doing. But after they figured yelling at Darryl Van Horn wasn't going to work, they began pulling KHARIS off, and KHARIS flung them and Mark Curtis away. Suddenly, to set up a feud that I cannot imagine this fucking thing actually happens, suddenly from the back, Dirty White Boy walks out with a chair to thwack Prince KHARIS in the back.
And he doesn't sell it.
Yes. At least that's a monster spot. I'll give them that. Because it's not like he took the chair shot to the back, didn't sell it for 10 minutes, and then sold it. Like he did with the eye poke. But yeah, so that's a monster spot. And this is setting up a feud that I did not know even happened. And I'd be shocked if more than one match happens between Dirty White Boy and Prince KHARIS?
There's a lot of aspects of this that I was appalled by. Perhaps the biggest one was less dignifying that terrible looking Cobra Clutch with the name Shininomaki, but
Oh,
it's
Lord.
it's so bad that everybody should see it because it's wonderful.
Yeah. It's no uh Bushwhackers versus Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. But I mean, on the Smoky Mountain scale, this is as good as that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
by the way, Prince KHARIS was 7 feet tall, and you can't teach that.
You sure can't.
Oh my God. So I thought Prince KHARIS was here for like a month and we never see him again. Prince KHARIS is here until the end of April.
Wow. It's like holy shit.
Yes. I will say, however, this was not his debut, not even the first match in Hazard, Kentucky. The first match was at a house show in Lenoir, North Carolina, against Question Mark. And it's important to note that he did, in fact, defeat Question Mark 1 week before the second annual Thanksgiving Thunder Tour.
R.I.P.
But
Josephus.
and I just got that reference, by the way. Not enough people are aware of the sacred Mongrovian flag ceremony, and that's just sad.
Yeah. That first season of the NWA Power thing had some promise.
You know, they took that down, the Mongrovian flag ceremony, because I know I'd seen that, and I'm like, that was like the greatest thing ever.
They took a lot of stuff down at various points when they were kind of moving between carriers and stuff.
I know it doesn't even matter at this point, but why are they still on Twitter? Like, why aren't they putting the shows back up on YouTube? Like, did YouTube kick them off?
Is Moron paying the money for it?
I can I cannot believe for one fucking second Moron is paying them a penny for that.
The fucking
You know?
moron. You don't know.
Because I mean, hey, Moron pays WWE for Speed, and every week when the Speed match goes up, it's a sponsored trending thing on Twitter. Like,
Yep.
but if Moron was paying the NWA for the NWA, it's apparently a mystery to everybody on Twitter because it never gets the sponsor plug on the trending gimmick.
Hey, you know what? You know what tomorrow is? Or sorry, you know what yesterday was?
The anniversary of the last Nitro.
At the anniversary of the last Nitro. 24 years.
So is it too soon or too late to begin bitching about how AEW is promoting their Boston show coming up as when they will surpass Nitro for the most primetime wrestling shows on WBD? Because I've seen a good amount of
It,
bitching, but I mean, I don't know if it's too early to really get in on the bitching or not.
you do that on your other podcast.
You mean the Tuesday show? Sure.
The Friday
Uh,
night spot show. You just prattle on, and I'll just get stoned.
while one man gang wrestles Abdullah the Butcher.
Don't
That's gonna
threaten
be
me with a
fun.
good time.
Tomorrow night, Friday night spot show, second half of Heroes of Wrestling. I made a note to plug it later, but what the hell? Now's as good a time as any. Jake Roberts, Yokozuna, Jake the Snake Roberts during Heroes of Wrestling. We will be discussing that tomorrow. That
Jake
is
Roberts
must.
was so fucked
That
up that
How fucked up
that
was he?
he was so fucked up that he forgot that if you get 22 in blackjack, that means you lose.
I thought he was so fucked up. That's the only reason why he was the only person to agree to do a job in the main event. Yeah, spoiler
Probably.
alert. Every other person in that main event refused to lose, and Jake just did it to shut everybody up.
They probably paid him in crack.
Hopefully, it was good crack.
I don't
So
think
we
crack
made-
has too many variations in quality. I don't know. I've never smoked crack.
You're not Chris Jericho. You didn't go to the crack store and ask for one crack, please.
No.
So before we go to Down and Dirty with Dutch, we get a replay of Mike Furnas being attacked by the Heavenly Bodies, including the delayed sell of a chair shot. Imagine for me, just for one moment, imagine Prince KHARIS versus Mike Furnas.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That, and I'm verklempt. I just don't know. I don't know if I need it or I think I need it.
Let me see here. Unfortunately, during Mike Furnas's illustrious 15-match career, he does not wrestle Prince KHARIS.
What a travesty.
Yes. However, he does wrestle the Hornet, who's also known as Brian Logan, who is not Prince KHARIS, unfortunately.
Too bad.
All right. So we then go to Down and Dirty with Brian Matthews. So we're going to go to Mike, and then that is going to thankfully segue to Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies.
Hi, fans. I'm Brian Matthews for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and we're here with Mike Furnas. Mike's good to see you again. And I know that you had an altercation recently with Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies, and we got together here because I know you had some comments about that.
That's true. We did have an altercation, and I've got a couple problems with it. First problem I have is that I am not a professional wrestler. I've been training in the ring for about 3 weeks in the area here. And the second problem I got with it is the biggest one, is the fact that they come down there in 2, 3 if you count Jim Cornette. I may not be able to wrestle, but I can fight. And when news like that gets out, my aunt has called my brother. I don't run to anybody for help, but he's darn sure there when you need him. And he calls me right straight back and says, you name a place, we'll get the job done. They've done that. Christmas Chaos and the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette are going to find out what it's like to be pushing around on the wrong people. Doug Furnas and Mike Furnas, they don't take that line down.
Joining me on this special edition of Down and Dirty with Us, Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies with the newly acquired Smoky Mountain heavyweight belts. Now, Jim, you just heard Mike Furnas's comments, and now I'd like to hear what you think about it.
What I think about what Mike Furnas said?
Yeah,
what exactly did Mike Furnas say? Let me see if I can decipher this fumble-mouthed, dumb jock, Tennessee volunteer football playing babble into some kind of real English. You know, I'm sure they push those athletes through school anyway, especially at the University of Tennessee. Reading and writing is not a requisite for a normal graduate, much less somebody that's a big star football player. But what I gather from what Mike Furnas is babbling on about is that we beat him up. We handed him his butt. He got hot. His family got involved. They called his brother Doug Furnas the big-time wrestling star in Japan. Doug Furnas, who's been wrestling in Japan for the past 4 or 5 years, big national celebrity over there. He's going to fly home for Christmas, and it's going to be Mike and Doug Furnas teaming up against the Heavenly Bodies at Christmas Chaos. They're calling the match the Homecoming. And you know, they say these guys, Dutch, they say these guys are not only, well, at least Doug Furnas, a great wrestler, but they're great world-class athletes, right? Is that what they say?
Well, let me say, I wouldn't be a responsible journalist if I didn't bring this up, but they have both played football, and they are both power lifters, weightlifters, and Doug, I know, set some sort of powerlifting record. What do you think?
Oh, I've done a little checking on that. Doug Furnas, 18 legitimate world strength records. Doug Furnas, Mike Furnas was the fastest guard in college football, right? Timed by the Washington Redskins. They got a list, they got a record as long as my arm, probably a police record too, a record as long as my arm of all these achievements in athletics, both professional and in college, high school. But hey, are we scared of football players, guys? Huh?
You see, football players get on a field with a bunch of pads, and they got to wear a helmet to protect themselves. When you get in a wrestling ring, it's nothing but flesh and bone. And you're not only looking at a couple of wrestlers, you're looking at the best, the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, right, Jimbo?
Hey, Jimmy, I got to ask you a question. Are you scared of anything about the Furnaces?
The only thing I'm scared of is them hairdos that they got. You know, first time I seen them, I thought it was a Jackson 5. I wanted to break down and sing a song.
Let me tell you something. Mike Furnas, you were a great football player at the University of Tennessee. When the coach walked up to you the first day of practice, he handed you a football. He said, "Hey, Mike, can you pass this?" Mike looked at it and said, "I'm not even sure I can swallow it." Let me tell you something, Furnaces. Let's cut the laughter. Let's get down to business. I hate football. Ever since I've been around East Tennessee, all I hear is Tennessee Volunteers, Neyland Stadium, go Big Orange, Rocky Top. I'm so sick and fed up with it. Neyland Stadium's a nice place to vomit, but I wouldn't want to live there. As far as I'm concerned, I hate football. I hate football players. I hate people that watch football. I think they're a bunch of sissies. Wrestling is for real men, like me in the heavenly bodies. And Mike Furnas, you're getting in way over your head, punk. You've never even had a match. You don't know how to wrestle. You don't know what happens when you get in that ring. Your brother Doug can tell you, because sure, he's a great wrestler, but if he graduated University of Tennessee, he's stupid. And that's the whole thing. You're strong? Hey, we don't care, because barbells don't hit back. The football players, it's all a game. There's rules, and there's referees, and there's regulations, and those college boys, they don't cheat. But you get in a wrestling ring, Christmas chaos against the heavenly bodies, brother. And I guarantee you one thing, you're going to open a new page in your book. You're going to find out what happens when you get in the ring with real men. Football players, weightlifters, bodybuilders, they're nothing to the heavenly bodies. Christmas chaos, the homecoming? Well, when you come home, Furnaces, you better kiss your family hello, and you better say hi to the dog and a cat, because you ain't going to spend much quality time at home. Christmas chaos. Doug and Mike Furnas, we're waiting on you is all I can say. And we're going to spit on the University of Tennessee and show everybody that the Volunteers are exactly that. Volunteering to get their butts kicked courtesy of the heavenly bodies.
All right. So first, Trae, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right. Yay, technical issues. But B, is that the greatest difference between the absolute worst promo and the absolute best promo in the same segment?
Let me see if I can decipher this fumble mouth, dumb jock Tennessee volunteer football player babble into some kind of real English. It's phenomenal.
I mean,
Hey,
I
that-
mean, he's Southern, so you may have as better chance as anybody else to figure out what the hell he was saying.
That college football stuff is real heat in the South. Like, you don't understand. Like, the NFL, college football is a lot bigger than professional football in the South.
I get it. Neyland Stadium, where the University of Tennessee plays, that is a big ass stadium, and they put, a lot of fucking people in there.
Oh yeah, I've lived in a couple of SEC towns, and they are all about those football games.
So I know you're in Houston, but you don't hear a lot of "How about them Cowboys?"
No, not in it's Houston, so like it's a lot more
How about them
Texans
Texans?
fans. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any interest in sports anyway. The people that I know tend to be the baseball team is very popular. My wife has even become a little bit. Yeah, my wife has even become a little bit of an Astros fan. So yeah, I don't know.
Before or after they cheated to win the World Series?
I think that was that we were
was
in
like
Texas, but we
2017,
weren't
I
in.
think.
Yeah, we were in Texas, but we weren't in Houston yet.
Okay. All right. So I would ask why they didn't retape this Mike Furnas promo, but to be honest,
Why?
at this point, yeah, like
Fucking
I
why?
doubt this probably was the best take they got out of it. I was like, first of all, I'm like, what the fuck happened to Dutch? He's the one that said he's going to interview Mike Furnas, and suddenly Brian Matthews
Yeah.
is here. Um,
Exactly.
Mike Furnas may not be a pro wrestler, but he is growing a mustache like his brother.
He's
Uh, he's
trying.
got the he's got the Doug Furnas mustache going there. What I believe he said was he does not call anybody for help, so he called his brother Doug to come help him.
No,
Um,
somebody else called Doug, like their mom or grandma or somebody called Doug.
he needs to better explain that next time because it just sounds like, well, I can't fight my own battle, so I got my big brother to come in and fight for me as the baby face. Um, so they're going to be wrestling at Christmas Chaos over to Dutch with Cornette and Heavenly Bodies, where we get told that reading and writing is not a prerequisite to graduate at the University of Tennessee, and that the Christmas Chaos match will be called the Homecoming. And at that point, now we had an appearance by Roddy Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey, our favorite scumbag, but Cornette went from comedy to seriousness here, and there may not be anybody in the last 50 years of professional wrestling that could turn from comedy to serious in one fell swoop like Cornette uh, was able to. Um,
He's that Cornette guy is pretty good at talking.
yeah, I hear that about him. Perhaps someone should allow him to do a podcast. I bet that'd be pretty interesting.
I
Um,
also popped for can you pass this? I'm not even sure I can swallow it.
I'm like, I didn't know where he was going with that, but I knew it wasn't. I knew there's going to be some line coming, and yeah, I.
Uh,
But he puts over the Furnace's strength and speed, and he screamed that he hates football and says he wants to vomit at Neyland Stadium. I wrote, well, that segment certainly ended better than it began.
yes, it did. That was quite a rise in quality over the course of the segment.
Yeah. Um, and so with that in mind, it's going to be at, I thought they did it last year, but they haven't been plugging in the annual part in this. But it's going to happen at maybe the first or maybe the second annual Christmas Chaos show. The Furnaces versus the Heavenly Bodies. Or, even
Christmas
though one of the members,
chaos.
yeah,
You mean we gotta
I,
wait? You mean we gotta wait to the 4th of July for this match?
I know, right? Well, by then, Mike Furnas may be a competent enough pro wrestler.
Well,
Um,
maybe the 4th of July 1999.
Now, keeping in mind, that one member of the team is Mike Furnas, how excited are you to see Doug Furnas here in Smoky Mountain?
3/4. I'd be really excited if it was the Heavenly Bodies against Furnace and Crawford.
Yeah, that would have been quite the fucking match. That would have definitely been, we need to finish building that time machine level of match.
Yes,
But we're
that
gonna
would
get Doug
would.
and Mike. Um, who was that guy? Glenn Kolka. Don Callis told the story when him and Lance Storm did a podcast that the WWF was training this guy, Glenn Kolka. He was a CFL football player, and like he gets in the ring for his very first match and breaks his leg.
Oh, that's yeah. One of the New Japan. He's on excursion right now. Yudo Nakashima. He in his first match. He wrestled Yuya Uemura, and they wrestled for about 30 seconds, and his elbow dislocated. He wrestled 30 seconds and missed like 6 months, but
Damn.
it worked out. He's doing good.
And how is Yuya doing? I know after he lost the Feast or Fired match in TNA and won the Fired Championship, that he had to go back to wrestling in New Japan. Which
Yeah,
obviously how's he
he
doing these days?
very good. He lost a hair versus hair match early last year, so he lost those long beautiful locks. Came back. He was having a very good G1, and in I think the next to the last match, I can't remember if he dislocated his shoulder, tore his rotator cuff. It was an injury that kept him out until February, so he's just come back, and he's wrestling. I think he's wrestling Sonata at Sakura Genesis because Sakura Sonata was a member of Just Five Guys, and he turned on them to join War Dogs. And I mentioned I don't remember if we were talking about this on air or not, but Chaos and GBH have both been formally absorbed into Hantai, and it looks like the former or just four guys, however many guys there are at the moment, are either going to be absorbed into Hantai as well, or will at least be like affiliate members.
I was gonna say I don't think they know how many guys are in just 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, it's funny because it's the last time Chris Charlton referred to some wag on Twitter on a New Japan broadcast, he was referring to me, but he somebody else apparently quipped that Hantai should join just four guys to form just 24 guys.
That would be tremendous.
But Yuya Uemura is really, really fantastic. When he was a young lion, I'm like, this fucking guy is special, and he is. He's tremendous.
But I mean, he hasn't been having the same level of success that his former TNA tag team partner has been having.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Can I get a JoYa?
JoYa?
Yes, that was their team name, JoYa.
Okay.
Actually, oh my God. So I once tweeted at Lance Storm asking him for a JoYa, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "It's literally the theme song of
He
Joe
fucking works
Hendry."
there. He
Yeah.
fucking works there.
And this was while, by the way, this isn't like, oh, I texted him or tweeted him 2 years later. No, this was while Joe Hendry and Yuya Uemura were teaming.
The
Oh,
such whimsical fuckery doesn't enter Lance's brain.
nope. So from there we get the Bullet versus Kevin Sullivan in a Singapore Spike match, which, if you don't remember from the last time they did this, this is the 4 boxes in the corner match, where in this case 3 boxes have nothing in it, and somehow, some way, to the shock of everybody, the 4th box is the one that has the spike in it. You ever notice it's never like the
Wow.
2nd box? You know?
Isn't that crazy? You think it had to be just once, like
And
to
it's
be the
funny because,
first box.
Vince Russo loves to do things that aren't done in wrestling without realizing why they aren't done in wrestling. So you would have thought when he did, the San Francisco 49er match, that he would have had that with the belt being in like the 2nd box or something. Because, bro, no one would believe that it was in the 2nd box, bro.
That should have been the frame picture of Scott Hall and then the belt.
What about the coal miner's flower glove?
I guess I've shut that out of my memory.
Um, yeah, we're really all over the place on this show this week. But anyway, this Bullet versus Kevin Sullivan match was a 5-star technical match classic where Sullivan and Bullet exchanged the most complicated and intricate technical maneuvers, including Sullivan using a Greco-Roman hammer to the dick of Bullet.
Greco-Roman
They,
hammer to the dick, not to be confused with the freestyle hammer to the dick.
yes, yes.
That was not a catch as catch can hammer to the dick.
Nope. This is definitely in the Greco-Roman rules of wrestling. Make sure to put that in the rule book. Killer Kyle ran down after the first 2 boxes were opened and went for the 3rd box. And this is a shoot, bro. It was not in the 3rd box, so he went to the 4th box. Like, you would think he would have like, okay, just go to the right box, Killer, but nope, 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 nope. Anyway, Bullet, who by the way must have had a match with Prince KHARIS backstage because he was covered in that white Egyptian dust that KHARIS was covered in. Bullet stopped him from hitting him with a spike. Bullet laid out both men. Sullivan then collided with Kyle, who was on the apron. Kyle accidentally spiked Sullivan, and the Bullet picked up the win.
Yes,
not the
that is what happened.
Not the greatest few weeks here for
And
Kevin
then,
Sullivan, because how did he
we
do
found
in
out
that?
what's going to be next.
Well, how did Sullivan do in that shoot fighting rules match on ECW?
I don't know. They didn't. They are not airing the untelevised November to Remember, other than
the 20 clips that they showed of it. And
other
the
than
Jim
the
Neidhart
clips,
Sandman match.
which they did say that was an exclusive for television match.
Yes, I know. It was on the fucking screen the entire time.
Yeah. But no, they didn't show. They didn't show the shoot fight rules match from the untelevised November to Remember.
And if you missed the untelevised November to Remember, it's a regret you will never forget. It really won't be. So what was with those fucking lights on ECW, not on Smoky Mountain?
Oh, I think they just didn't. I don't know. They didn't like the building to tape for TV, even though they knew they were going to tape some stuff. I don't know. I don't know the rationale behind those production choices.
I am quite positive that we will never see those lights in ECW ever again. So whatever Todd Gordon paid for them, he did not get his money's worth.
They were not very good lights.
I did notice behind the lights, though, was the bingo board, since this was, a place that they legitimately had bingo at. So it's possible that they hung up lights to block it, but even that's not the greatest of idea either. Especially since, black drape would undoubtedly be cheaper.
It's funny because the next week they air matches that were taped the night before at the Tabor Youth Association, and it's much better lit.
The Terror in Tabor.
Yeah.
So let's go to Jim Cornette, who, despite not being at ringside for this match, is quite upset with the results of this match, and he's got a challenge for the Bullet, and that's going to lead to a Bullet promo.
Lack of a better word, the Bullet has dodged the bullet. Kevin Sullivan gone down to defeat at the hands of the Bullet, and Jim Cornette, once again, still, you don't have the mask.
That's just another example, Bob Armstrong, of you beating somebody that's better than you are just because everybody around here is on your side. You've got luck that I can't believe. You've got the officials on your side, but let me tell you something. I want you out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I want you out of my life, Bob Armstrong. I want rid of you once and for all, and I'll do anything. I want that mask at stake at Christmas Chaos because I'm bringing in Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, a good friend of mine, a guy that I know can take you out, Bob Armstrong. You put that mask at stake, I'll put up anything, Dutch. I don't care what it is. I've got to get rid of this guy. I don't care if it's every penny my mother has. I don't care if it's my house. I don't care if it's my car. I'll put up everything except my dog Snuffles. I won't put up Snuffles. But anything else, Bob Armstrong, you tell me what you want, and you got it. I don't care how much it costs me. I'll put it up if you'll put that mask on the line. Oh, Dutch.
Okay, Jimmy.
One of the exciting events at Christmas Chaos will be Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, being sent after this gentleman by Jim Cornette. Bullet, we just heard Cornette say that he'll do anything. Put up all his mother's money, her car, her house, maybe even his mother, anything to get that mask off of your head.
Well, I'll tell you what, Les. There's a lot of things that he's got I'd like to have. For instance, that big Cadillac he drives, that big fine home his mother lives in. Maybe about half her fortune would do me. There's a lot of things he's got that I'd love to have. Because Dick Murdoch is a tough man, and just going up against him for nothing, that'd take an idiot, and I'm no fool.
He's a tough man.
I've been here a while. He's sent a lot of bounty hunters against me, but I guess Murdoch is about the biggest. I'd say he's about 6'6" or 7", weighs about 300 pounds. Much bigger man than me. But I don't think he's got a bigger heart than I have. And I'll tell you what, the more I think about it, I tell you what, I do have an idea.
And what would that be?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. Let me think about it. There is one thing that Jim Cornette has that I would love to have. And not only me, I think everybody in Smoky Mountain area would love to have and love to see me have. And I'll just tell you about it next week. How about that?
It's up to you. Well, there you have it. Next week, the Bullet's going to let us know what Jim Cornette has that he really wants. Be with us, please.
All right. So if I took a drink every time the Bullet said, "I'll tell you what," would I still be able to produce this podcast?
I didn't realize you were producing the podcast now.
Haha. But yeah, is it like, I'm assuming it's a Southern thing because Ron Wright used to say it all the time too. Like when I come down there to see you in a couple months for Y'all In, am I just going to hear over and over again, "I'll tell you what"?
Likely. It's a very common, it's more of an old people thing, I think.
Are you trying to insinuate that the Bullet or Mr. Ron Wright are old?
It is 2025, and they have both passed on from old age.
Well, at least they passed away of old age. I mean, there's that.
Oh, good for them. That's wonderful.
Yes.
That's the way to go.
Yep. So Dick Murdoch is coming in at Christmas Chaos to wrestle the Bullet in a mask versus anything but Corny's dog Snuffles match.
You can't look. No matter how sure you are, you can't risk Snuffles.
I don't know, if I were the Bullet, I'd want Snuffles. You know, I think I haven't watched next week's show, so I don't know this for a fact. But I think we can all guess what the Bullet's stipulation is going to be if he wins. Like, am I not thinking about this enough? Like, it's if he wins, Bullet Bob is the commissioner again, right?
I feel like it's going to be something more humiliating to Cornette, but I don't know what.
Well, I know, I don't know how much longer this Bullet thing goes, but I know, spoiler alert, at some point, Bob Armstrong is going to be back as the commissioner. So whether it happens here or whether it happens here or sometime in the future. But that was my immediate thought. And my second thought was it took Bullet 2 full minutes to tell us nothing.
Well, it takes a while to do nothing.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get the big match. Not Bullet Bob. I'm sorry. The Bullet versus Dick Murdoch at Christmas Chaos. I always love that, like, when Bullet does his promos, half the time he doesn't tie his mask. So it's like, it removes any doubt in your head that this might be anybody but Bullet Bob Armstrong, which I get is half the joke, that, everybody knows it. It's not, a surprise. But, this is one of those times where he did not tie his mask on before his promo.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's like when Mr. America had his big Fu Manchu mustache, and everyone thus knew it was Kurt Angle. So let's go to Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Fitch, who are standing by with Les Thatcher to talk about the Christmas Chaos show coming up.
Christmas Chaos. It's a triple threat match. The Smoky Mountain title on the line. Tracy Smothers, the Dirty White Boy, and this gentleman, Primetime Brian Lee, battle it out for that title. Miss Tammy?
This is so unfair. It is so unfair. It's unbelievable. Not one man couldn't beat Brian. So now what? They're bringing 2 men in the ring to try to beat Brian for the belt. It's not going to happen. Not only 2, there's 3 against 1. There's that little hussy, the dirty white girl out there, and she tries to get her hands on Brian every chance she gets because she's got that fat redneck slob to hang around with, and I have Brian. She's just jealous. But it's just so unfair, and I'm not used to putting up with things that I don't like, Brian.
Tammy, I'll tell you what we have here. We have a bunch of hometown cooking, a bunch of rednecks. Tracy Smothers, you couldn't get the job done. White Boy, you couldn't get the job done. What's next? You gonna bring a knife to the ring? You gonna have 10 against me? You might even bring Les out of retirement trying to jump on me because you can't get it done. Tammy Fitch is the first lady of professional wrestling. Primetime Brian Lee's a Smoky Mountain champion, and that's just the way we're coming in, and that's just the way we're leaving. We're out of here.
Christmas Chaos, you won't want to miss it.
Do you want to miss Christmas Chaos and the triple threat match for the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Championship?
I think if I missed it, it'd be a regret I never forget.
No, that's the other territory.
I can regret lots of things. Trust me.
By the way, Maddie in the house ripping on Joey Styles for complaining that Terry Funk was choking him out with a cord. That's my jumping the shark moment for Maddie in the house. Like, how
Some people pay good money for
dare
that sort
you
of
be,
thing.
yes, how dare you besmirch Joey Styles like that? So Tammy is not used to getting what she wants, and Primetime Brian Lee is worried that they'll bring knives to the ring. I'm like, no, that's the Harris's match.
I mean, we just had a spike in the other match.
Yeah. So yeah, we got 3 or 4 weeks now to build up Christmas Chaos. Actually, 3 weeks. This is December 4th. Um, so yeah, we're already getting forth to the two main events, and I guess I'll wait till after the next match to ask you the question I was going to ask. So we'll just wait. So, the Harrises versus the Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette in a gang fight. Now, if you recall, the stipulation of this match was that each participant was able to bring one weapon. However, from what I could see, the Heavenly Bodies did not bring any weapons. At least they didn't have them with them when the match started. So maybe the stipulation was only the Harrises could bring a weapon with them, which is absurdly unfair, though. Even more unfair by the fact that they had 2 chains and a door. That's 3 weapons between 2 men. That's one too many weapons.
I mean, who's going to stop them?
That's true. That's
I
very
thought,
true. And go ahead.
I thought that Jimmy had his weapon under his backwards baseball hat, and he just lost it before he could use it.
Possibly. Jimmy Del Rey went head first through the door. Now, when you hear me say he went head first through the door, you might think, well, he went head first and he exploded out the other side of full body out the other side of the door. No. Jimmy Del Rey went head first and created a head-shaped hole in the door that his head was now part of. And I'll be honest, and I cannot imagine how uncomfortable that was and how probably impossible this would be. But I wanted Jimmy Del Rey to pull the Terry Funk with a ladder on his head and like stand up with the door still on his head and swing it around at the Harrises.
You guys know how like everything Jimmy Del Rey is the best part of everything he does. That's what was going on here.
Yeah. So literally on the head first through the door, Jimmy then gave Mark Curtis the poon salt on accident, and that was the deadliest poon salt of all time because Mark Curtis was dead, you know. And by the way, no other referee ran out. And now that I think about it, was Mark Curtis the only referee there? Because like anytime I noticed the referee was Mark Curtis.
Probably. You know, when I die,
great.
I hope it's due to excessive poon.
What about a poon salt?
I mean, however it gets there.
So you would rather be Al Wilson than Mark Curtis, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd rather die. Never mind.
I'll be honest, if I'm 70 something and I die having a lot of sex with a smoking hot 20-year-old brunette, fuck, sign me up for that now.
I think if I live to be 70, I'm just gonna do all the drugs.
Not just some of the drugs, but all of the drugs.
I mean, well, why not at that point? What do you got
When
to
we're
lose?
when we're still doing this podcast and we're at like episode 2000 or so, and
we'll be reviewing AEW Dark Elevation.
oh Lord, I was gonna say we'd review oh my God, what was that awful show that had the wrestling show in the mid-90s that had rounds? Like the AWF
Oh,
or
the
something?
AWF, yeah.
That's what we'll be reviewing. That's when you'll finally get me to watch WrestleLicious. Um,
Oh.
so Cornette pulled out the Ether Bunny and attacked one of the Harrises with it, which put him out. The other Harrisy flung Jim Cornette onto a table set up in the corner. And when I say he flung Jim Cornette onto the table, I don't mean he put Jim Cornette through a table. I meant that Jim Cornette had to jump over one of the Harrises and do a senton into the table that he promptly bounced off of.
The table blew the spot.
That was a shoot table. The other Heresy, after doing that, took the Ether Bunny and put out Dr. Tom, and he then assaulted Mark Curtis to wake him up and have him count out Dr. Tom. You've never seen someone wake up a referee this way. And imagine for a second, like let's say Mark Curtis, like something would have happened, he got kicked in the top of the head and was legitimately knocked out, like Jim Corderas at WrestleMania 4, like legitimately knocked out. And all this Harris knows is that he has to wake up Mark Curtis to have him count to 10, and he grabs him and yanks him in one fell swoop to his feet. That would have been really freaking dangerous.
Yeah, but it worked.
Yep. So Mark Curtis, after the assault, did count Tom out, completely ignoring the other Heresy, who was also unconscious from the Ether Bunny. And then the Moondogs hit the ring to begin what is legitimately the worst feud in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Oh, I can't wait. I was so excited.
Yeah, the Moondogs and the Heresies. So that leads me to my next question, the question I was going to ask you earlier. So Christmas Chaos is coming up. The Heavenly Bodies are wrestling the Furnaces. The Heresies are probably wrestling the Moondogs. What are the Rock and Roll Express doing on that show?
Are
they doing Real World Tag League too?
They are not.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. know.
This is what happens when you only have 4 tag teams. When you suddenly insert a 5th one is left out in the cold.
Yeah, which you could do stuff with like Ricky as a single, but
if you want to see Robert as a single, there is 6 full months of Smoky Mountain Wrestling with him as a single. They would have 3-man promos with him, Primetime Brian Lee, and Tim Horner. It's like, these were, yes. It was like the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. Especially since it'd be 90 seconds long and Horner would take like 60 seconds of it. So at least we're keeping Primetime Brian Lee and Robert Gibson to a low amount of time, but still. Oh, Lord. So let's go to Les, who's going to attempt to end the show.
Card it has been. We're about to wrap it up. If you had to use one word, it would be insanity. Every match has just been a real barn burner.
Hold on, Moondogs! You got your little thing here! You have a good time! You come from behind! Bring your stuff! Next time, I'm gonna find something to come at you! Bring your boys! Tables! I cut them down! I cut you down! It's easy to come from behind somebody and do what you call an old-fashioned market. Next time, you ain't coming from behind. Next time, we're gonna get you. Moondogs! I can go, and act stupid and crazy, but this time, boys, come get in the ring with us, because, baby, we know you're coming. You're coming, and we know it. So come see us, and let's get it, baby.
And what more can you say? That's it for Thanksgiving Thunder. We'll see you soon.
What the hell did they just say?
They're gonna fight the Moondogs?
And they're gonna do something with a table saw to them.
Well,
one of the Heresies suddenly had a table saw in his hand. Like, what?
Wow.
Pray tell are you going to do with your table saw? in this wrestling match.
We might not want to know.
Like, hey, Al Snow discovered Head because he was rummaging around like a prop closet and found the mannequin Head backstage at the ECW arena. This is not going to be the Harris's gimmick moving forward, where they suddenly have a table saw that they bring to the ring.
I bet you that wasn't the first or the last time somebody got Head back in the ECW arena.
No, I heard Missy Hyatt was a big proponent of Head at the ECW arena.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. All right, so 97 down, 103 to go. Overall, I'd call this a good show. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
We definitely had some laughs on this show, both for good reasons and really, really, really bad reasons. But yeah, we got some good shit here, pal. And now normally at this point, I would tell you what else is happening in wrestling. Well, Dave didn't put on an issue this week, so too damn bad. I believe this is when he goes to Japan, or when he's supposed to go to Japan and ends up in the emergency room instead with like an emergency appendectomy, I think.
It's a very Dave thing to have happen to you.
Yes. But yeah, so that is gonna do it here for Smoky Mountain Wrestling for this week. 97 down, 103 to go. I still remember when I was on episode 8. I remember when I got to episode 10 and celebrated we got to double digits. So we're almost at triple digits, Trae. And at some point, maybe this will be what we do when we turn 70. You got to go back and watch those first however many episodes, those first 40 or 50 episodes that you missed.
It's going to take so long.
I mean, there is a lot of wrestling for us to watch.
There's ever so much wrestling to watch.
And I'm honestly looking forward to the discussion that we have in about 3 years over whether or not to keep doing World Class after Fritz's heart attack.
Yeah, we'll see if we make it that long.
Yes. Oh, I'm confident at this point. You know, ain't nobody can hold us down. But yeah, it's like I know I told you this before, and I think we mentioned this on the show. This show ends in 2 years, which is also going to be the same time that Gino Hernandez dies in World Class, and it's going to be the same time Mid-South changes their name to UWF.
So there's a exit ramp.
Yes. And hey, that is how you get out of the Gino Hernandez Chris Adams feud. Just have one of them die. And then Chris Adams magically gains his eyesight back thanks to Gino Hernandez's death.
And y'all, we really did contemplate, like, maybe we just make it to Kerry winning the title and then move on. But I think we both really want to see the Chris and Gino stuff.
Yes. I just love in a very macabre way that when Gino dies, I think it's still Mercer. He goes on and talks about how we had 2 tragedies recently, the death of Gino Hernandez and the blinding of Chris Adams.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy. That wasn't great, was it? But we also like the Midnight Express at the end of 84, beginning of 85, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
we still have some good shit to go, you know? Of course, when we get to Brian Adias as the top heel, and like Scott, or was it Scott and Steve Simpson or Sean Simpson? The Simpson brothers are coming in at some point. And then we're going to have Seth Rollins, Al Perez coming in.
Oh, poor Al Perez.
I don't know if that's a bigger insult to Seth Rollins or Al Perez.
I don't know.
All right. So tomorrow, Friday Night Spot Show, second half of Heroes of Wrestling. We've done a lot of podcasting the last 2 weeks. Trae and I, we
Mhm.
did all four shows last week. This is the fourth show we're doing this week because we did well, actually, no, this is the third show I guess we're doing this week so far because we did the Bill Mercer tribute as well. Um, Cindy and I did TNA yesterday. Trey and I are going to be back for the Friday night spot show tonight, or tomorrow night, excuse me. And of course, and I just remembered this, I got to fire up the ECW on TNN because tonight I got to go on to Marks on Wrestling, the former angrymarks.com, and do our bi-weekly ECW on TNN review.
Fun, fun, fun,
Yay.
fun.
Yes. Oh, yes. Loads of fun. And also because it always coincides with the last Thursday of the month. They have Dragoki in New Bedford, Dragioki. They combo drag show
Oh,
and
yeah,
karaoke.
yeah.
So that is tonight at 10. Well, it's a drag show. It's scheduled to start at 10 p.m. And spoiler alert for those of you who have never been to a drag show, it will not start at 10 p.m. You know,
Never
I've
been
been
to
to
a drag
drag show.
show, unfortunately.
Yeah. I've been to drag shows where at the time it was scheduled to start, I was the only audience member there. And by the time it started, there was a reasonable number of people, but everybody knew by that point it will not start at the time that's listed. And I was only there because I'm anal and have to be everywhere on time.
You're telling me drag queens aren't very punctual.
Correct. And it's funny because like I had a discussion with one of my friends who does drag or used to do drag, and I mentioned, I'm like, one of these years y'all should probably start this on time. And she was like, well, if we start on time, there's nobody here, and yada yada yada. I'm like, well, then they learn that next time show up on time because the show's gonna start on time. Which I guess kind of defeats
That's
the purpose because I mean they do drag for tips, and if you're doing drag with nobody there just to prove a point, you're not going to get any tips.
it's why, like New Japan, like every once in a while, you got to have a big match in with a flash pan in 2 minutes just to remind people that it can happen.
Well, that's why we put Yano in the G1 for years.
Yeah,
Do you
I kind
remember?
of missed him last year.
Do you remember the first year that they moved it from having 10 block matches to like a few tags and 5 block matches? They decided that everybody, including Yano, had to put in time. And those were like the worst Yano matches ever. Because it's like, I love Yano, but I don't
Yeah,
want to watch a 10-minute Yano singles match. Um, and then it's like
yeah.
the worst match, I don't remember if it was that same tournament or a future tournament, was him and Mike Elgin. Because, and this is before I realized what a piece of shit Michael Elgin is. But Elgin apparently, I don't know, it felt like he was backstage and basically told Yano that he refused to do this comedy shit. Because like he would not play along with it at all. And then it was hilarious because like the next match I think was Yano versus Omega, and like say what you want about Kenny Omega, he had a perfect Toro Yano match.
That's the thing about Omega. He's the kind of worker that like he's gonna have your match just to show he can.
Yeah, honestly, and there's probably going to be a few heads exploding for this comparison. He's very Ricky Steamboat in that regard because Ricky Steamboat, he would wrestle your match. And,
Yeah,
that's part of what made so many of his matches so great. It was because he did not force you to have his match. He was talented enough to have your match. And
yeah, and that's the thing. Like Flair is always gonna have a Ric Flair match. Bret Hart always gonna have a Bret Hart match.
which explains why those two did not get along in the WWF.
It's really funny that like they say the same things about each other and they're both right.
Yeah, they both are a very patterned match. But it's like
Yep.
there's really nothing wrong with that. It's like everyone has setup moves. Everybody has the
Yeah,
sequences that they like doing. Like,
exactly. Yeah, I don't even have a problem with that. Everybody has their spots. Everybody has their shit.
yeah. And so yeah, that's gonna do it here. So the next time they hear us, well, after tomorrow, it's gonna be April already. This Tuesday,
Oh,
something else.
that's
April, this coming Tuesday. Of course, we'll be back Wednesday with Cindy, Thursday with the Smoky Mountain Show. And we got to come up with a schedule for, you know, those 2 weeks, or I'm in Vegas for 8 days, but essentially the 2 weeks I'm in Vegas. We'll figure something out because I know Cindy is basically blocked off the Sunday before, so the 13th. I blocked off that night with her to do the 2 TNA shows. Um, but we'll figure out something for the four other shows we're missing. Well, not really missing, but the 4 shows that we have to kind of do in advance.
See, you think there's not a lot going on, but if you look closer, you're so wrong.
And that's why you could stay so long where there's not a lot going on. This is, we're gonna have a hell of a week next week. Tune into the show, and for this week, I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all do tune into the Friday Night Spot show. Listenership or viewership was down last week. We'll see how this week does, and move forward. Maybe Heroes of Wrestling is just a bust, and then next week, as long as it still works for you, we're planning on doing that WCW London show that they just put up on the WCW Vault channel.
Manchester.
I'm sorry, Manchester. Sorry, I did not mean to besmirch the fine people of London. All right. So that's it for this week. Hope you all enjoyed listening. And we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.